Hi, Kate. Good afternoon.
Hi.
It's so nice to have you here today. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, your full name is Kate Uslan, is that correct?
Yep,
Okay. And you live here in Charlotte, North Carolina, actually around the corner from me.
I do. We are neighbors.
Okay. Very good. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Michigan and Indiana, so we're Midwest, but when we moved to Charlotte in 2004.
In 2000.
So,
Okay. So,
yeah.
you've been here for a while, just like me.
Yes, feels like home
And you've lost your Midwest accent.
if I ever had one. I'm not sure.
A lot of people from Michigan tend to have an accent.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think I ever had that much of an accent.
So, tell me about growing up in Michigan. What was your kind of early childhood like?
Well, it was great. I had, nice family, lots of friends, went to, um, spent a lot of time in northern Michigan in the summers, just beautiful places, really very positive. And then my family moved to Bloomington, Indiana when I was in high school. So did my high school there, had to make all new friends, and then I stayed there for college. So I went to Indiana, and then when I finished, I moved to San Francisco for a year because that's what all the cool kids were doing. And so I thought that would be fun. Lasted about a year, and then I was like, this is too expensive and crazy. So moved back to Indiana. Then I started applying for grad schools. I went up to Minnesota for grad school. Finished grad school, got married, and moved here.
Okay, so after grad school and getting married, you ended up here in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Okay, and then at that point, had you experienced any symptoms of SD at that point?
No. Nope. Just had normal, normal, healthy life.
And what was your life like once you got here to Charlotte? What were you up to at that point in your life?
So, well, I studied public health in grad school, and I got a job here at the health department. And I worked in health prevention, communication. I was mostly focused on tobacco, trying to help people quit smoking, and also working on trying to get the restaurants to go smoke free. So that was my main focus for a few years when I moved here, and helped with efforts across the state to make that happen. So, which did happen back in 2008, I think. So that was my first couple of years, and then I moved into another health communications position for a national organization working on childhood obesity, physical activity, um, meals, and school wellness, school meals. Excuse me.
Mhm.
So that was a work from home job that focused on lots of writing, editing, communications. And I was there for about 7 years. And it was about the last year of that position in 2013 when I started to notice something was changing with my voice.
And was there anything happening at that time of your life? Was there more stress? Had you just given birth? Was there any kind of shift, maybe from a stress standpoint?
The only thing that was more stressful at that time was that I had a new supervisor at work that I wasn't really jiving with, and sort of was, I felt stress at work, and I was working from home, but I was just hunched over my laptop for 8 hours a day, feeling very tense up here. So when I started struggling with my voice, I just saw it's tension in my back and my shoulders. It's my posture. I just need to, figure out a way to relax. So, but I guess over probably a period of about 6 months, it just kept getting worse. And I don't think it even occurred to me that it was like a physical problem. I just was really sure that it was related to work stress. And then one day my husband was like, like, maybe you should go to a doctor. Like, this really sounds strange, and it doesn't seem like it gets better when you're not working. And he's kind of like, I don't buy your theory here. So he's like, just go to a doctor, make sure it's not cancer or anything. So I made an appointment, went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor just around the corner from us. And he did the camera, which was horrible. So, and I believe that he started to suspect then that it was SD, and he referred me over to Charlotte Ear, Nose, and Throat. So the actual, I think the onset of symptoms was maybe like 6 months. Could have started a little before that. I just really didn't notice. But then when I first went to the doctor, until I had my diagnosis, I think it was only maybe 1 or 2 months.
Which is very fast, because for a lot of us,
Yeah.
it can take years. I've heard of people taking decades.
Yes. So I'm fortunate that they recognized it pretty quickly. Actually, the first doctor, he originally said, after looking, he's like, well, everything looks fine. He's like, you are getting a little older. Maybe your vocal cords are starting to sag. I was like, I'm only like, I think I was 34 or 35. I was like, saggy vocal cords? Is that a thing? I was like, I'm not that old. So that was his first thought. But then he said, let me refer you for another consult. So
That's so funny, because at 34, I'm in my 40s now, but I think of a very youthful person, and we don't think of anything sagging at that point. Or that's certainly not the things we associate with sagging. I didn't know that vocal cords could sag, so that's news to me.
yeah, that was new. Haven't heard that theory anywhere else. So that was definitely the start of the journey.
And what was your SD like? Like, for example, I've had SD for quite some time now, but I have more mild symptoms where my voice will catch certain words I have to avoid. If it's loud, I can't speak. There's things like that. So what was your kind of condition?
Yeah, very, very similar to yours. Definitely on the mild range. And, it was mild enough that when I did go to Charlotte Ear, Nose, Throat and saw the doctors there, he kind of was like, it's mild, it's no big deal. Just live with it and be grateful that it's not worse. So, and I was aware of that because at that point I'd done enough internet Googling and like heard all sorts of different, folks sharing their voices. And I could tell that I was very mild and I was grateful for that. But at the same time, I was like, but I could feel myself closing in, not speaking up to talk as much at work, not wanting to speak up as much with friends, and even with my family, because I just didn't think I would be heard. I thought I would have to repeat myself, and it just really quickly started to affect how I interact with the world. So that was really frustrating and depressing. So they recommended that I do the speech therapy. So I did do that for, it was maybe like 4 or 6 sessions. And I didn't get anything out of it. And I was sort of frustrated that they, recommended that as a course, part of the treatment, when it seems like most people don't get that much out of it. So it just sort of gave me a bad taste for that practice. And I think I asked at one of the consults, I said, should I try Botox? Is this? And they were sort of like, your case is so mild, like, why would you even bother? So I said, okay. And, I think part of me was glad to hear that, because the thought of the Botox injections was scary. I really hate needles. I faint around needles. I thought, I'm gonna have to do this every 3 or 6 months, and it seems expensive and painful. And then, you know, just from what I was reading, it seemed like this real emotional roller coaster every time, sort of waiting to see what was going to happen, how quickly your voice was going to come back. And I just thought, yeah, that doesn't seem like an improvement from what I have now. So I never did the Botox, and just sort of told myself that I was going to have to live with it. And part of me still wasn't totally convinced that it was not stress related. So I decided that I was going to quit my job and try to see if I could really like spend time doing exercise and yoga and meditation and like trying these more holistic things to finding more balance, to see if that, you know, and luckily, I mean, my husband is a musician, like we are not loaded, but he was doing well enough that he was like, yeah, take a few years off. Let's see if we can figure this out. And we thought that if I was kind of helping him manage his music career, that we could make it work. So I figured, okay, I'll just take a year or two off, and then I'll hopefully find my voice and find a new job that was less stressful. So 1 or 2 years was turned into 5 years. And during that time, I was trying all sorts of things and nothing was working. And it really just made me feel sadder and sadder.
Yeah, and I can identify with so much of your story. I'm nodding my head because me also having this mild form, which sometimes I'm like, man, I wish it was worse, because it's weird to even think that, because why would I want something worse than I already have? But people would be like, well, it's not that big of a deal, or it's just a mild catch, or no one thinks it's a really big thing, so just get over it. Every time I heard that, it would make me cringe because it was a huge deal to me.
Right. And it just makes you feel like, what is wrong with me? Like everybody's telling me this is not a big deal. Why can't I just listen? Why can't I just, you know, find my confidence? Like I was a confident person for the first 35 years of my life. I was, you know, really felt strong in my profession and felt like a leader. And then just, you know, within the course of a year, it just kind of curled up. And yeah, it's really, I also was like, well, if it was much worse, then I would do Botox. I would know what steps to take. Yeah, it's a weird in-between place.
So what was the tipping point for you to start seeking out more radical forms of therapy and surgery?
Yeah, so, and some of the things I did try, well, in addition to the speech therapy, I was trying to do lots of massage. I was looking for like cranial sacral. I went to some places where they like really tried to massage my throat. I took a series of Alexander technique classes, which is a thing that a lot of actors do to learn how to project their voices. So I was reading a lot of books, trying to find, you know, I was on all the Facebook pages. I was taking, you know, tried magnesium supplements and did something else called Feldenkrais, which is another way of like learning how to hold your body so that everything's in alignment, and reading about the vocal chakra, and bought some CDs for like with vocal exercises. And I would, when I was in my car by myself, I would just drive around trying to sing and project and practice, and did the straw exercises. And I mean, that was like 5 years of my life, just throwing a lot of money and emotional energy
I'm laughing because I
around.
did the same thing, so I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. And just feeling, you know, I think that if I was older, that I would have been like, you know, if I was 60, maybe 60 or over, I'd be like, okay, it's no big deal. I'm going to retire soon. But I was like, I'm not even 40. Like, I need to have a career for like at least 25 more years, probably. Like, how am I going to do this? Should I change careers? I was doing a lot of like career exploration, because even though I was doing a lot of like writing, copy editing, felt like I was still in public health. You're still doing a lot of meetings, presenting. So, and about after like 4 years or so, I was like, okay, I need to get my career back on path. I'm going to start looking for a job, and I'm going to see who is willing to hire me with a voice like this. And I think, I'd started I learned about the Japan option. I was like, okay, I'm going to keep that in the back of my head, and I'm going to look for jobs. And maybe if I find a job and I start a new job and I feel like confident, then I'll just learn to live with this. And maybe I won't need to do anything too crazy. So I started looking for jobs, had all these interviews, didn't get one. And that was really hard for me, because until that point, like, I was really good at getting jobs. And I was like, is this my voice? Is it my voice? Is it whatever, like living in Charlotte or the economy? Or is it that my confidence is so shattered that I'm projecting that? So that was really stressful. So I was like, I'm going to look for a job for a year. And if I don't have something, I'm going to try to go to Japan. So.
And let me stop you there. So that's the second time you mentioned Japan. For people that don't know what that means, can you explain that?
Yes, sorry, I jumped ahead. So I was spending a lot of time in the Facebook groups for SD, trying everything that was recommended. And at some point, a couple years ago, I saw someone posted about going to Japan for the Thyroplasty 2 procedure. And I was like, that was the first time I'd heard about it. So I started poking around, started trying to read more about it. I think I was able to reach out to maybe 5 to 10 other people that had either done it or who were researching it, and just built this like really nice community of people that wanted to talk about their experiences, or share what they had gone through, both positive and less than positive, but mostly positive. So I went to I found the website, read about it, and I work in public health. I would say I'm fairly health literate when it comes to reading articles and journals and doing a lot of research. So I just read everything I could read, which was not a lot. But after talking to a lot of people, I just said, okay, maybe this is something I could do. I went ahead and submitted my voice samples through the website, had a Skype consultation with the surgeon there. And he said, from what I'm hearing, you definitely seem to have just a straight standard case of SD. I don't hear the muscle tension. He said, I definitely feel like you could benefit from this. Of course, I'm like, well, of course you're gonna say that. You want me to come, I was like, how do I sort of figure out that piece of it? So that was stressful to me, because it was all done over Skype. I'd send him my medical records, and but so anyways, we had a consultation. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and reserve a date and time for this, because that's gonna give me some just peace of mind to have it reserved. And I'm gonna spend the next 6 months continuing to look for jobs, continuing to think about it. And if nothing happens, maybe I'll just go and do it. So, and then in the meantime, I was reaching out to a lot of family members who work in the medical field and all sorts of different kind of roles. And I was I really just wanted confirmation from other people that this wasn't complete insanity. So, and I really was worried about like telling my parents and my in-laws, sort of folks from, you know, the older generation. I just was worried that they would not support the decision. Not that I needed to, you know, them to support it, but I thought maybe if they try to talk me out of it, you know, because I did have 2 young kids, and I was like, is this too risky to take on, you know, as a mother, like, so, but surprisingly, I had a lot of family members who read up about it, and like they reached out to people, and everybody came back and said, we think you should do it. So, and my husband was supportive, and I was like, and I think by that point, you know, nothing was working out with the jobs. I think for me, the first hurdle was like convincing myself that I could go to Japan and be back and probably survive. You know, like it seemed like a minor enough procedure that I probably wasn't going to die.
And did you go with somebody or did you go by yourself?
So, well, after I sort of worked through that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to die. And like whatever they do probably won't make it worse. So yeah, I could take the risk, and even if I come back the same, like if it doesn't work, at least I will know that I tried. So I sort of had to get myself in that headspace before I booked my flight. And yeah, I was like, who's going to go with me? I'm not comfortable asking anyone to spend that much money. We couldn't afford like bringing my whole family over. We didn't have people who would stay with our kids if my husband went. So I was like, you know what? I want to do this. I'm going to go by myself. It's going to be fun. Like I've always wanted to go to Japan. So that was another like big motivator. I was like, told myself I could make an appointment. I could go over there. I could meet the doctor, and I could back out at the last minute if something didn't feel comfortable. If I got like, I had to tell myself that that would be okay, and I would still get like a great vacation. So I went ahead and bought my ticket just by myself, solo ticket. And I told one of my best friends in Charlotte that I bought the ticket. I was going by myself, and she was like, no, you're not. I'll go with you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So luckily her husband is a pilot here for American, so she's able to fly anywhere for free. So she said, I'm going to meet you there. I'm going to go on American, you know, whatever flights I need. I might get there like a few hours after you, but I'll get there. So that was really special and
blessing, huge.
Right, huge. So I just felt so much more at ease, but I also knew that like even if she couldn't get there, if the flights were full, that I was going to be okay, and that I was going to have a great time exploring. So I went. This was June 2019. June 2019. I waited till the last day of school to make it easier on my husband to not have to. And I flew off to Japan, and my friend did land like a few hours after I did. And I got us a beautiful hotel, and we had a great night, like walking around, eating. And then the next morning we went to the clinic to meet the doctor for the first time, did a bunch of like pre-op tests, and I just felt really comfortable there. He was so easy to talk to. The nurses were so sweet. Everything just seemed really like efficient, and he just like put me at ease. And also there was an American medical student who's like interning there with him for the summer, and she also had SD. And she had the procedure at UCLA when she was like really young, like 10 years before. Maybe she was 15 or 16.
Wow.
And she was a medical student now. And so she was like, this procedure is amazing. I've been here all summer. I've seen him do it. Like, you know, he said, here's, you know, a room. Why don't you two go in, sit down together, have a chat, because I was nervous. She just put me at ease. She said, I've been watching him. He's great. This is great. This is going to be good. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
That's fantastic. Now, can you explain for the people watching right now, what is that? What is the procedure of thyroplasty? What, as best as you can, obviously you're not a doctor, but what is involved?
Yeah, so they make a very small cut, which maybe you can see
Can't
right
read.
there.
Okay. All
They take a very small titanium bridge and they slide it in into the larynx. Pretty sure it's the larynx. And they are able to kind of open it at different lengths, which helps just pry your larynx open a little more so that when your vocal cords are slamming shut, as they do in SD, it's just keeping them open, you know, a teeny bit more so that you have more airflow. And the, you know, the noticeable closing, which is what gives us the strangled sound, it just sort of smooths it out. So, I mean, it's still happening. They're not curing the SD, but I just have a little more air so that it's not quite as noticeable. So I mean, it's a pretty minor procedure. They do keep you overnight to monitor, just make sure there's no swelling in the throat after they close you up. Also, they keep you awake for the procedure. That was my biggest worry, I think, was, I mean, they want you awake because they're testing out different sizes and you're communicating, you're talking, and you're like, you know, and it's crazy because, you know, they, I think they make it bigger, and then your voice gets really high, and it's like Minnie Mouse.
Wow. And you could hear it during the surgery? You could hear your voice going up like that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I definitely did not enjoy lying there awake for an hour and a half, like knowing that that was the hardest part for me. Because sometimes my mind goes to some dark places, and I was picturing, for some reason, I was picturing an earthquake happening, because, you know, those happen in Japan. And I was like, you know, all these medical equipment, and there's these two Japanese surgeons who are just like right over your head, and they're speaking in Japanese, and you're just like, I felt very exposed and vulnerable.
Yes.
But what I did was think back to my cherished days at summer camp when I was a kid, and I started going through camp songs that we used to sing. And that was like how I got through.
Oh.
So, and they said actually my cartilage was kind of on the thick side for a woman. So they told me going into it that my procedure might take a little longer than a normal female's. So they said it might be like an hour and a half instead of an hour. And I was like, okay. So it was not a fun hour and a half, but it definitely was, there was no pain. I couldn't feel anything. It was just all in my head. But at the point where they started adjusting, and, you know, like, that's stressful too, because this is your chance to get it right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm on all sorts of medications. Like, am I going to make a good decision? And so they're standing there, and he said, would you like me to go get your friend and have her come sit with you here? And I was like, sure. So they went and brought my friend. She came and sat next to me. She helped me like listen to the different tones and help me decide,
Wow.
you know, what size. And then I think she was able to sit there for most of the procedure and just help keep me calm.
Wow, this is some friend you have.
She's the best.
We're gonna have to send her a copy of this interview.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah. So then they closed me up, and yeah, it was about an hour and a half. They wheeled me back, and you know, I wasn't groggy or anything. Right away, they brought me some tea, or maybe it was like a half hour later. I wasn't supposed to talk for a couple days, but I was able to eat, drink. They brought me this beautiful meal like an hour later. I was able to swallow food. So all that was great. And then I did have an IV, which I think was just to keep liquids going. I can't remember if it was. Yeah, they just gave me some basic like Tylenol for pain meds. Maybe there was an antibiotic too for a few days. But that was it. And the room was very simple, but huge windows. And there was a thunderstorm rolling in, and it was just beautiful. And I felt so calm and proud of myself and just at peace and so grateful for the doctors and grateful that I survived. And so it was a cool moment. And then, like I had a great night's sleep. Then we woke up, checked out, left, and they were like, you can come back if anything feels funny, but otherwise you're good. So we went right from there. We went out to lunch, went shopping. I mean, I was totally 100% fine the next day. So
Wow.
we spent the next 3 days just exploring Kyoto, doing all the tourist things, and I had my phone and my friend had her phone, so I would just text what I wanted to say, and we just had a blast. We were laughing nonstop, and I was trying not to make noise, but it was just a wonderful vacation. And then I think the day I flew home was the day that I could start speaking again, and definitely was. I think I was kind of quiet for a couple of weeks, but it came back pretty quickly. And then I think over the next 6 months, maybe it just kept getting louder and stronger. And this part definitely felt sore for a few weeks, but more like the outside of the neck, where it healed. When 10 days after the surgery, I was home and I had to go get the stitches out. That was an ordeal because the doctor I went to, she was like, those are really small stitches. Like, I don't even have scissors that small. And I was like, what? So she starts jabbing at my neck with this huge, and it hurt so bad that I fainted.
Oh no.
I
Stop.
woke up and I was like, can I just go? I should have just stayed in Japan. I don't trust. I really have lost a lot of my trust in the American healthcare system through it. But I was like, all you had to do was take out the stitches.
And did she cut them? Did she end up cutting them out, or did you go somewhere else?
No, she cut them, but it was painful when it shouldn't have been.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So, but that was fine. Then they were out and I, healed normally.
Oh, wow.
So, and actually, I think maybe a day or two after that, I think it was only a week or two after I got home, I had a job interview and got the job.
Congratulations.
And I was just like,
Wow.
there's no way to know. But it was the first time in years where I had been in an interview or talked to anyone where nobody was like, what's wrong with your voice? Are you sick? I mean, that was just a norm, every day. That was
Yep.
strangers. And it just got so old. And just, a week or 2 weeks after this, went in, had an interview with 4 people. And I was like, are they going to ask what's wrong? Why I did sound a little more quiet. And I was like, wow, amazing.
That is amazing.
Since then, no one has asked, what's wrong with your voice?
Because there's nothing, I can't detect anything with my ear. Is there anything off with it? I don't think so.
Sometimes I feel a little gravelly or I don't think it's 100%, but I think it's 95%
Yeah.
hidden, which to me is great. And so And I actually now, a few months ago, after COVID started, I ended up switching jobs. And so, yeah, again, now I'm in a new job, and I work from home completely and work with people all over the country, and I'm on conference calls all day. And I was like, again, like I haven't mentioned the fact that just over a year ago, I went to Japan for a voice surgery. It's just a non-issue in my life now.
So I remember, and it happens to me now, but I don't work like I used to. But when I would be on conference calls all day, and forget about the Zoom aspect, that adds another layer. But when I'd be in calls and meetings with my condition, I would feel physically exhausted because talking took so much mentally, emotionally, and physically for me. Does that happen to you now?
It does not happen now. I mean, I used to be tired all the time, and I would feel dizzy from just not getting enough oxygen up, to my brain, I think. Um, it doesn't happen now. Just that little, I think it was like 2 millimeters or maybe 3 millimeters of extra space I have in there. And yeah, I don't get dizzy. I can talk all day. I mean, I don't need to talk all day, but I do try to keep hydrated. Because I still, I can feel dry after talking a lot, but I don't think it's related. Um,
Well, one of the things I was thinking about as you were sharing your story, that you were there, it sounds like for a week or maybe less than a week, and then you had to come back and get your stitches out. Was there any concern that possibly there could be an adverse side effect, and what would happen given that you're in a different country than your surgeon?
I think the only adverse side effect, sort of short term, is that like if there's, inflammation, swelling around the site, that would affect your breathing, and they, said that would probably happen in the first 24 hours, which is why they advise you to stay for at least like 4 days after. The only concern I have now is that, like, yeah, there's not a lot of long-term data on this. So sometimes I'm like, is this still going to work in 30 years when my vocal cords actually start to sag, or like, could it get moved out of place? Sometimes, I wonder, like, what if I get in a car accident and they have to get tracheotomy, or like, would they hit something? Would they see that there's a piece of metal in there before they, I definitely had those thoughts before, and I sometimes have them now, but I was like, I can't live like that. Like, this is going to help me get through the next, well, who knows, but hopefully a long time. And, um, sometimes just gotta hope for the best. And I'm definitely hopeful that more doctors here will start to learn about the procedure. And I did know there is one person who had it done and then regretted it because she was a professional singer and felt like it changed her singing ability. And she went to, I believe, UCLA and had it removed.
Okay.
So that sort of gave me some peace of mind knowing that, like, someone could take this out safely if something happened.
And is the surgery available at UCLA and Kyoto at this point?
No, UCLA, they're not, as well, as far as I know. I haven't really kept up over the past year, but they were not doing Thyroplasty 2. They do another surgery, which I'm forgetting the name of, but it's a much more intensive, procedure with a very long recovery time. I shouldn't even, because I don't remember what it is, but I definitely looked into it at the time. They were starting to do this Thyroplasty 2 in the Philippines. I think people are going there for it now. They were doing some sort of procedure in the Netherlands that was different, but also less invasive than the UCLA. So I looked into that. I mean, I felt like I did as much research as I could. And just spoke to enough people that had gone to Japan that gave me the confidence that I needed.
And what kind of costs should people be thinking about? The surgery is one thing, and then the travel is another component. What would you say the ballpark of the surgery would be?
Well, and unfortunately, I believe they doubled the price of the surgery right after I went there. And I'm not sure, you know, I don't know if they're willing to negotiate or if COVID has affected things due to a drop in demand from foreign, you know, I have no idea. But I paid approximately 6,000, including like the taxes and the overnight stay and the meals and the medicines. I believe it was close to 6,000. I think the last time I checked, their website said 10,000 now. And then I believe my flight was like 1,100. And the hotels were reasonable because I went in June. So I think the summer is a cheaper time to go over there because in the spring, a lot of tourists go to Japan for cherry blossoms. And I guess in the fall, they get a lot of visitors too for their leaf changing. So summer is an more affordable time. And I think, yeah, I had maybe 6 nights of hotels, and I think I paid close to 100 a night. There was certainly less expensive ones and certainly a lot more expensive, but I was really happy with the places that I chose, and food was reasonably priced, and we really just had a great time.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, and we do have a Thyroplasty 2 Facebook page that anyone can join, and I created a short video over there with some kind of talked about where I stayed and explained to people how I got from the Kyoto train station to the clinic, because the clinic is in sort of a suburb. So you either have to, I believe the taxis were expensive, and it almost sounded more difficult to explain to a cab driver where we were going because I heard that their English was not great. So I followed the directions for how to get there on the bus, and then I tried to make a little video to make that easier for anyone else who goes. So.
And the Facebook group is called Thyroplasty 2 Facebook group.
I don't remember what it's called, but if you search Thyroplasty 2, it'll pop up. And there's plenty of people there that have gone to do it or thinking about doing it, and some good resources.
So what words of encouragement would you share with somebody if they're struggling with SD right now? Like, let's say that they're like, gosh, Kate, that's great that you were able to go to Japan. That sounds awesome, but I don't know if I can do that. What would you say to them?
Yeah, it's hard because I know not everyone can do that, and I hate that, and I'm, angry that we need to go to Japan. So, I would say talk to your doctors, kind of see where they are, see if they know anything about it coming here sooner. I think the National SD Association is involved with trying to keep track of who's doing these procedures and trying to, there was some effort around trying to get these titanium implants FDA approved over here, because I think that was the barrier, was that the device itself wasn't FDA approved. Again, I have not really kept up with this over the past year, so I'm not sure, but I would just kind of, again, I think if I was older and at a different point in my career, I might not have gone down this route, but to me, it felt like a good investment in myself. And again, we were not loaded. It was not easy for me to throw that much money at this, but luckily my family thought it was the right choice, and it seemed worth it to me. And I really believed that it was going to help me get my career back on track, which would help me pay it all back.
Which is
put it on the credit card. Yeah.
Yeah, put it on the credit card until you can get the job and
yeah,
kind of get the engine rolling again.
Yeah. And it worked. So, definitely try to keep hope up. Try to find your support people. Try to join the local support groups. I actually never went to meet the Charlotte support group in person. I think I was really nervous about doing that because the medical folks just made me feel like I was overreacting and that I was being really emotional. And so I pictured going to that support group meeting with a bunch of people who were much more severe and just feeling that I was making, that I was being dramatic. And so that really kept me from going. And of course, now that I've met you and spoken with others, I regret that. I should have been there, but also it was always like Thursday nights when I had to be dealing with my kids and my husband was working a lot of nights and I just couldn't make it work. But definitely find your support folks, if it's friends, support group, whatever.
And I think we would love to have you come to it whenever we start meeting again as a group. We would love to have you come and share your story. And I get what you mean, because a lot of times, even in the group, they'll say, Elsa, you sound good, or it's really mild. And I'm like, listen, we can never compare each other's sufferings, because for someone to say to me that I'm not suffering because my condition is less, it doesn't validate my life experience, right? Or for me to do that to somebody else. Sorry for the dog howling in the background, but and I've never felt that in the group, just so you know, and anyone else listening. The group is all about support, and it's, as I continue to do more of these interviews, I recognize that that's one of the reasons we've not stayed sane. That sounds a little dramatic, but it's just given us an anchor. It's given us hope to hear other people that are just like us, whether it's a very severe case or it's very mild, like myself.
Yeah, I think the group here in Charlotte really sounds great, and I really wish that I had found you all earlier and taken advantage of that resource. So hopefully I will get to meet you all in person. There was one other person I did meet in person here in Charlotte. We had coffee, and that was really nice, just to feel like I wasn't completely alone. So just, try to find at least one person that you can share this with, because nobody else gets it. And that's really, really hard.
Kate, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your story, and for having an open heart and being vulnerable with us today. It means a lot.
Thank you for having me, and no problem. And if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, they are more than welcome.
How can they find you? On Facebook, or what would be a good way to reach out to you?
Yeah, probably on Facebook through this, through the ST of Charlotte group, or you can find me on the Thyroplasty 2 group and just send me a message.
Okay, Kate. Well, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.
No problem. And let's meet in person soon, hopefully.
That sounds great.
Hopefully.